Kia ora, g'day, welcome back here with part 2 of my reaction to the Antihero podcast, and specifically this episode 119, talking about Roberts Ridge and John Chapman. So let's jump back in.
If you don't give up enough memorabilia or artifacts, that does also play into whether you get a display or not. And this was discussed with me through we'll just say other people, which is how I know this is actually partially it's not the whole thing, but applicable to this.
So this is in regards to the Medal of Honor Museum display. I forget where it is. And John Chapman doesn't have a display there. And the guy that was in the middle of the screen that was talking, that was actually on the gunship during the time of this particular assault or attempt to recover Neil Roberts from off Roberts Ridge, is speaking about or spoke about the fact that John Chapman doesn't have a prominent display. So Brent is talking about if they don't get enough memorabilia, they don't get a display. That just seems weird. Like, surely there'd be enough ways to generate or get enough memorabilia from photos from mates of his, places where they would have been at work, that if they can't get or use the original, like I said before, I think in the other reaction, make a replica of it.
Enough memorabilia or artifacts, that does also play into whether you get a display or not. And this was discussed with me through we'll just say other people, which is how I know this is actually partially it's not the whole thing, but applicable to this. But I go back and I say his family, even if that's true, didn't have to give up anything. The only thing you have to show is the ISR footage, because it's it was the first Medal of Honor to have. You could just have that in loop. And who says that you have to have his uniform and his kit to say like this was his? You can make a replica of that.
Awesome. I'm glad he said it. So yeah, I was hoping that would come up. I wasn't sure if it would. I thought it was just that's their way the Americans do things, and they have to have their gear. But just you can make a replica of any of the gear. Like, you can make replica weapons that don't actually fire or function at all, like with the resin molds and all that sort of stuff. You can get a set of uniforms, just get it in his size. Doesn't have to be his actual uniforms. Like, the fact that, if it is a fact, if the family members or loved ones have to part with the actual items that belonged to their loved one, I don't think that's right. I don't think they should have to. I think the military should make every effort to just get replicas done, or the unit can make every effort to get replicas done and then put that into the display.
Some of the answers I got, which were answers, and I'm not saying they're wrong, they just didn't necessarily sway my decision that I understand and I get it.
Yeah, not gonna not have it. Just go ahead.
Yeah. And then anyway, just want to dive a little bit deeper in that Medal of Honor issue, because since last time we talked about it, I had talked to some people have a little bit more understanding on it, and I have more understanding on it, but I still don't agree with it.
Yeah, so the family was willing to give up artifacts, and they were initially working with them. But when they had traveled out to visit the museum and see what the plan was, then everything went calm silent. And as they got closer and closer to the opening, that's when she had re-engaged with them to figure out, hey, is there something happening or not? Because I haven't heard anything.
That's crazy. Hey, like, the family is actually willing to part with items that belong to John Chapman, to their loved one, or to her husband, if that's the case. And then they just break all comms and stop talking. Is that because this Brit Slabinski guy ends up having a display there instead of John Chapman, and they knew that that's what they were going to do and not have John Chapman there, so they just stopped communicating? I think I read somewhere they tried to say that they lost comms, or that they were unable to get in touch with John Chapman's wife or whatever again. I think that's a crock, eh? Like, wouldn't she be a gold star? I think that's the term that they use, the gold star family member, or wouldn't when a loved one of theirs is lost, become a gold star wife, or apologies if I've got that term wrong. Those that know better will probably let me know. I'm just going off what I've heard when DJ Shipley has spoken on the Sean Ryan show, and I think from what I've seen in other places where loved ones have been lost, and then the surviving family members become like a gold star member and get additional support from the US military and that sort of thing, which is great if that is what happens. So yeah, again, coming back, if her husband John Chapman has passed away, they've engaged with her for memorabilia, which they're willing to part ways with for the purposes of having John's display prominent and showing. And then all of a sudden you lose comms and say that you lost comms. Surely that's a crock of SHIT, right?
Thing. And then lo and behold, the person's gone, the plan has changed. And when you look at it and you want to know why, look at Britt Slavinsky's display, and it'll tell you why, because they did their best to disassociate from John Chapman.
And and
I say that.
What a prick. Like, why is Britt Slavinsky looking to disassociate from John Chapman? Why are they? It'd be great to, like, I did a reaction last night to a clip that was sent through to me, and that guy Slavinsky just seems off, like his whole body language and the way that he's communicating. And at no point during the interview did he even acknowledge or talk about John Chapman. It was just about him. And I think I spoke about that in the live last night. Maybe I'll do a separate reaction to that, actually. The more I think about it, and then hearing this guy, it just actually sort of pisses me off, to be honest. Like, you're supposed to be a man of integrity. What did he say? He kept repeating on his Scout's honor or whatever it is over and over again on that night. I don't know where his Scout's honor has gone or where his integrity has gone right now with regards to why he's got a display of himself. It just sort of, I suppose, gives you a bit of an insight, or gives me a bit of an insight in terms of what that guy must have been like, and or definitely what he's like now. Maybe he was a good guy before then. Definitely, like I shared in the live reaction that I did last night, full credit to him for being there on the ground. They were looking to go in to try to recover Neil Roberts. But John Chapman was the one that charged the bunker one. John Chapman was the one that exposed himself when that other chopper was coming in. Sadly, it still got hit. And sadly, I think 5 other people lost their lives as well from that chopper. But that whole chopper could have been lost if it wasn't for the actions of John Chapman. So 2 distinct times in the one event or contact or assault, recovery, operation, whatever you want to call it, whereby John Chapman earned the Medal of Honor twice in one go. Britt Slavinsky, from what I could see in that footage, like I said, give him a gallantry medal or something, and or the other members of the team. But to be awarded the highest honor that American military has, I think they've done themselves, I think the US has done themselves a disservice and diminished the integrity of that medal. And definitely this Slavinsky twat seems like he's doesn't have any integrity, because if he did, he would have, one, I think, in my opinion, declined a Medal of Honor if he had been told that he was going to be receiving one. And 2, he wouldn't have his display up there. It would be John Chapman's display, prominent as well as in the permanent fixture. Anyway, it's just my thoughts.
And this is also, people will say this, and I got to argue, it's not true, but it can be true at the same time. And I think you know what I mean by this when I explain it. Is people are also very upset because Slavinsky is on the board for the Medal of Honor Museum, and so they're like, well, he's on the board and he has.
So if he's on the board for the Medal of Honor Museum, that makes it even. And he was in the patrol. Surely you would think that he would be putting forward John Chapman's name to have the display and not him. Does that make sense? Like, you're on the board, so I assume you're having a say in terms of who gets a prominent display, who's part of the permanent fixture, which John Chapman is, which is great. But my take, without having seen it and what that looks like, I don't think that's enough. There should be a big prominent display of John Chapman memorabilia, the footage that Brett Tucker was talking about. Brett or Brent? Sorry if I got his name wrong. This guy on the screen anyway, of what he was talking about. There should be that ISR footage just playing on loop. Commentary if they want to have it, or the ability to turn the volume up so that they can hear the commentary of what's been said about John Chapman, and and then just referring to other members of the patrol and that sort of thing. But man, that's crazy. You're on the board and you've chosen to put a prominent display of yourself on there instead of John Chapman, for following John Chapman, not leading, following, and then leaving the two guys behind as you evacuated off the top of that feature. Wow.
As a permanent display, that looks like he made sure of it. And their answer to me was none of the board members had a say in who gets a permanent display here. And that can be true of sorts.
Then what's the purpose? What is the purpose of the board for the Medal of Honor museum or display? Like, what are they doing? If they don't have a say in who gets a display, just trying to think, what would a Medal of Honor board, what would their purpose be? You know what I mean? People that know, drop it in the comments, let me know. Otherwise, I have no idea what this supposed board has, if they're not deciding or having an input into what display or who gets displayed or whatever.
But we can't completely discount and discredit that the board members are there and just their names and meeting them doesn't have some sort of weight behind who they're going to put into the displays. I don't see how you can completely separate the two.
Well, and to be fair, I don't think he's the only board member with a display there. But not everybody else had some extenuating circumstances, such as.
I mean, I don't disagree with a board member. Like, if a board member has earned, in this case, in this scenario, a Medal of Honor, or say it's a Victoria Cross winner, in the UK, Australia, New Zealand, whatever, and if it would make sense to me that if they're going to be creating this display or this museum specifically for Victoria Cross winners or Medal of Honor winners in this setting, it would make sense to me that you would invite, especially if they're still alive, Victoria Cross or Medal of Honor winners, and go, hey, would you like to be on this board for this particular museum? Where, by the way, there will be displays of all the Victoria Cross or Medal of Honor winners. You're one of them. Would you like to be on the board? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's a great thing. Like, inviting living members or living persons, I should say, that have been awarded the Medal of Honor in this case, or a Victoria Cross, and then say, hey, would you like to be part of the board? Having some clarity around, and I also don't disagree with board members that have earned that type of recognition, that have been invited to be a part of the board. I also don't disagree with them having a say in who goes where, or how prominent the display is, or whatever. Like, I think they've earned that right to have that opportunity to have a say. So if you're saying that people don't, board members in the Medal of Honor, for the Medal of Honor Museum, don't get a say, and some of them are living members and recipients of such a prestigious award, why have them? Like, that should be a part of what I would think, them having an opportunity to sit on the board to review and have a look at and have some say. So I don't necessarily see anything wrong with a board member who also is a Medal of Honor recipient, in this case, having a display in the museum. Like, should they not? Surely people would agree that they should be displayed in the museum, right? Specifically for the Medal of Honor. So I don't see anything wrong with that at all. In Slabinski's case, what stands out to me and what I think is wrong with it, as I've mentioned, I think by awarding him a Medal of Honor has significantly diminished the value and, dare I say, the integrity of the US Medal of Honor. Just because the ISR footage doesn't lie. Like, you can see it in terms of what happened, and then you can hear the narration, and people like this guy on the camera right now who were in the gunship above, flying above, that could see what was happening. So, and who was who. So anyway, but that's something that this twat Slabinski has to live with now, and it seems like he doesn't have an issue with it.
Winning a Medal of Honor with another person who also won a Medal of Honor in the same mud.
Right.
So
you would think there's no way you as a man would allow your names to ever be separated. You know what I mean? So, ever in history, out of respect to a fallen comrade, you both earned your Medal of Honor on the same night, the same soil. Your names are forever, forever together.
Yeah.
And to think that one could have one without the other, that alone just blows my mind.
It's asking for problems.
Well, I can see why I received some of the messages and why people have mentioned that they're disgusted with this Britt Slabinski. And it does seem like a dick move. Like Brent, I think it's Brent Tucker, has made a really good point. And the same mud, spilt the same blood. Thankfully, at least one of them survived. The other one passed away. My opinion, Britt Slabinski's actions didn't warrant a Medal of Honor, not from the footage that I watched and that I saw. The only person who earned a Medal of Honor that night in that same mud and that same environment, contact, etc., was John Chapman. And for two very distinct reasons, which are prominent in that ISR footage when you listen to the commentary of the person talking about it. And how, with what makes it even worse, I think, well, for me and probably for people that have watched this episode and who know a bit about the Medal of Honor Museum, is that Britt Slabinski, being a board member, you would have thought, so say maybe they don't have a say in terms of who gets a display or not. I would have thought he would have fought tooth and nail to make sure that John Chapman gets a display, at least right next to him. If he's still going to have his display up, Slabinski's display, I would have thought that he would fight tooth and nail as hard as he could for John Chapman to at least have his display. And then worst come to worst, go, well, hey, like if there can only be one of us from here, then out of just what you'd like to think, just out of respect for John Chapman, who lost his life, who was left behind in that particular incident, who did then risk it all and saved multiple other lives through his actions, I would have thought Slabinski would have had the blinking, the integrity, his little Scout's Honor pledge that he was saying to himself over and over again, to go, you know what, John Chapman deserves this display, not mine. Anyway,
it was the wildest thing I would have ever imagined, because if you were going to do it, I would have imagined that if they're going to honor it, you put both of them out there and you share that platform to tell the story that is the totality of the story. Instead, you walk over to Britt's display, and he pays tribute to Petty Officer Neil Roberts that they called Fifi. Fifi's there, full name. Tells a little bit of story about him, kind of an ode to Fifi right there on Britt's display table, and I think that's very honorable. The bad part is that there's literally no tie to John except for one single quote, and that is a quote by Britt that says, "I wear this award for the 7 that were lost," and he names all 7 by their first name only.
Wow.
Holy crap. What a twat. This guy sounds like not this guy talking, and none of these men talking here, or none of these men in this podcast that I'm reacting to. Britt Slabinski just sounds like an absolute twat. Like, why people... I wonder if anybody's gone there and just chosen to, I don't know, vandalize that guy's display. It just sounds super disrespectful in terms of what Slabinski has done. Why, I don't know. All it seems to be doing is making himself seem even worse, because social media being what it is and the ability to get these stories and this information out there, and dare I say the truth, because what this guy so far is talking about and what I've seen in the ISR footage, lines up with who earned the Medal of Honor on that particular night and that particular contact and that recovery operation to try to retrieve Neil Roberts. So rest in peace to obviously Neil and to John Chapman and the other 5 who I don't know their names, but the other total of 7 that lost their lives on that feature that night, that day. Hal Slimebinsky is maybe is a better way to describe him. Slimy. Hal Slimester has managed to just leave out, and that's just super disrespectful based on what this guy's spoken about here. No acknowledgement. Great that he's got some words to acknowledge. Rest in peace, Neil Roberts. Nothing other than John Chapman's just his first name. Nothing about the warrior that he was. Nothing about the fact that he earned 2 Medal of Honors. Just nothing. And based on what this guy's saying. Slimebinsky, mate, you are a twat. On Scout's honor, whatever that bloody rubbish code you said you were repeating to yourself over and over again, you are a ball bag.
Well, let's
anyway
with that intro to the the things that have ensued since this. Let's get into the story itself.
Absolutely.
If you don't mind.
Right. Oh damn, that was just the that was just the intro. What are we? Which I suppose isn't surprising. 22 minutes. It's a 2.5 hour long interview. So yeah, I probably rattled on. How long have what's this been going for? About 20 minutes. So yeah, maybe another 10 or so minutes, and then I'll cut this, do another reaction video to another one. But yeah, sorry, I didn't realize that this was just the intro to what they're about to get into.
Walk us through Operation Anaconda. What got us here to this fateful night?
Roger that. So most people are probably familiar with Anaconda, but in the off chance that you got somebody who's not,
Operation Anaconda, I'm pretty sure I was on Cycle in Australia during that time, and we were hearing updates from time to time as Cycle members, because an element of the Australian SASR was over there during that time, and there was one of the guys. He was one of the SIGs. I don't know if he was a Bureau qualified SIG or not with 152. Obviously part of posted there at Swanbourne and Campbell Barracks, where the unit is or where the regiment is. And they were involved in some heavy. I think he's got a book out. His name is Jock Wallace, or went by Jock anyway. I don't know if that's his actual first name, but a good guy from all accounts, involved in some super heavy fighting. I think he received a Medal of Gallantry for his actions, maybe something else as well. I haven't read his book, but from what I heard, he was super calm and stuff during some very heavy, life-threatening engagements and stuff that they were involved in, while there was a lot of chaos and stuff around. Anyway, that was, those were just some of the stories and snippets that we were hearing whilst we were on Cycle. And, that for me, when I was starting to hear that, or when we were hearing that stuff, we would look at each other and be like, this is what we signed up for. Like this is, and I'll be honest, like we did have probably some of our naivety there, and still being pretty young too. There's a bit of excitement, and we had like me and my close mates, like we had a bit of a smile on our face, like, yeah, like this is what we're about to get into. Like, this is why we're here. This is why we went through the selection. This is why we're doing the best we can in everything that we've been taught on Cycle. So Anaconda was a big deal to us, to me, even though I wasn't there on Anaconda, just based on what I'd been hearing.
The basic lowdown is this is the spring offensive. So we're coming out of the winter, and this is the time in which the theater's about to wake back up, and everybody's going to get their fight on. Things slow down because of the wintertime, snow, the altitude, the mountains, the weather. It just gets harder to fight on the ground, and so it just goes into a lull period in the winter. So Operation Anaconda is planned for months in advance. We're basically taking playbook pages out of the playbook from the 80s, understanding what the Soviets and the Mujahideen had gone through. So we understand that they're probably going to fall back to this particular area because it was significant to them in the 80s. And sure enough, that's what they did. So when Anaconda's plan, the plan is essentially called Hammer and Anvil. You have special operations, advanced force operations that are going to man the observation points with special reconnaissance teams. And they're going to be there to to basically locate the enemy and direct the conventional forces and various fire platforms, with in the form of Air Force, whether it was B-1s, 52s, or AC-130s, you name it. The assets from the Navy, you name it. So the AFO is going to get their teams into place in the high ground, and then there's going to be an infill of conventional forces. There's going to be a backing force of SOF with indigenous forces from the local guy, the local warlord Zia. That's the essential scheme of maneuver. Everybody's in place.
Huge operation, like lots of moving parts and stuff there. The command and control elements, as I'm listening to that, just thinking, wow, that's a big beast in terms of moving parts and organization and structures, the backstop, so to speak, the conventional forces, the early forces that are inserted, which I assume are the special forces elements, providing overwatch and calling in what will be air support and all that sort of thing, walking conventional forces onto potential targets at the same time, trying to obviously keep them out of harm's way as much as they can by giving them early warning in terms of where hotspots are. It's just, that's a big beast.
But for night one of Anaconda, it became quickly clear that the enemy already held many of the key high ground positions. So as forces started to move in, we ended up with more troops in contact situations than we had dedicated CAS close air support platforms.
It's interesting, eh? Like hearing this guy talk about that they were taking lessons learned from the Soviets and the Mujahideen in the 80s, and identifying likely points or areas where the insurgents were likely to withdraw back to, which they did. Obviously, they've learned from, they've been learning as well. And however many decades of fighting that they've been through, it would make sense that they've learnt a few things along the way as well, and that they would also be taking lessons to apply them to their situation so that they can be better prepared for when a force like coalition forces or the US force decide that they're going to come in there. They would know as well, the Americans, there's less ground fighting, they're less trying to get into our areas during the winter. They understand that, we know that, we can sort of reorganize, regroup, plan, strategize, prepare for what's about to come. And what do you say, the spring offensive? Like we know, they would know, the insurgents would know that, okay, they're going to get in the spring, they're going to probably start to look to try to maneuver and get and take and hold key areas of interest, i.e. key high ground positions. And these are probably the likely spots that they'll want to try to dominate. But we're going to look to get there in the first place. So hearing this guy speaking about it, that there was so many troops in contact on their way to trying to get to those positions, that's just more learning for, dare I say, if another blinking conflict kicks off over there again, who knows? Like that, never say never. Who knows what could happen, man? It would be, and would the same thing happen again? Carry on for years and years and still no result? Like the Taliban just take over and run the country again? Withdraw, pull back for a bit, come back in once it's all said and done? Probably would be the same result. But man, anyway, my mind just went wandering for a second there, worrying, maybe not so much worrying, wondering, I should say, about what if and what's next. Let's get back to this guy.
To deliver fires to help them out. So night one ends up not being the greatest success. There's sadly a fratricide event that occurs. It actually happened on the aircraft that I was flying on. We had an airborne mission computer failure halfway through the mission. The crew did everything textbook, did an airborne realignment. When you do that, there is the possibility that you can have drift in your navigational system. And as the mission ended, we were bingo for fuel. We were headed home, and on our way out, we happened to spot a convoy, and we called in everything and coordinated with the ground force commander and went through the identification of friend and foe. Well, the sad part was the location that we reported was not the same place that our sensors were actually looking because of the drift in the system. So when we gave the location to the ground force commander, he says, I don't have anybody. We check friend or foe. We get no actual observable return for marking IDs, that sort of thing. And thank goodness we didn't have any fuel, because we would have probably caused a heck of a lot more damage than we actually did. Instead, we damaged, chased off some of the indigenous forces, and we killed one of our friendly operators. So that actually comes into play the next night, because it drives a change in the rules of engagement for night 2 and on. Instead of having a looser type.
Man, that's sadly it's not uncommon. There's been lots of blue on blue. Like I think you just heard him say. I'm not sure if that's a full blue on blue there. Just looking at the time, I'll probably let this play a little bit more just so I can hear. But like a lot of, I guess, Air Force stuff there, and the drift that he's talking about, the navigation system trying to get what sounds like PID of a convoy on the ground. I don't know. He says that they killed, sounds like one of the baddies, but they also killed one of the friendlies. So I'm a bit confused. Was that convoy a friendly, or was it in the vicinity of where some bad people were, and they dropped some ordnance a little bit too close, which took out one of the friendly forces? I'm not too sure.
Control for calls for fire. Now you were tighter, and you needed to have positive two-way comms with somebody on the ground who was visual with the target.
Okay.
I'll pause there.
Okay. Well, I'll pause that there too, because I got some other videos to react to. I might even react to that Slabinsky one again. Who knows? But yeah, thanks for stopping by. We'll come back to this video again. That's part 2 done. It's going to take me a little while to get through these, but yeah, if you're here for it, you're here for it. If you're not, you're not. So anyway, feel free to chime in with your comments and stuff in the bottom. Your take, your thoughts. If you know a lot more about this situation than I do, feel free to drop those comments down below in the comment section, and I'll do my best to get to them, maybe include them in my reaction or read them out, and yeah, and we'll see where we land. So anyway, take care, look after yourself, as always. Regardless of any challenges, difficulties you may be going through, keep tuning up, keep staying in the fight, put one foot in front of the other, take one day at a time. Know and trust that things can do and will get better if you want them to, and that the sun will shine again. Those better days are always closer than you and I think, and there is a light at the end of that tunnel. So just keep hammering, stick at it. As always, go always a little further. Remember, who dares wins and who cares wins. And until the next video, there is a big mana wave coming from me to you, filled with my aroha, respect, appreciation, and gratitude for you all.